Hello, my name is Ben Lee, Young Ben Lee. This is my video for the early submission for the OpenEMR agent project. So here we're looking at the screen for my fork of OpenEMR. This is going to be in addition to the original fork website we have here. It's going to be an implementation of a lot of the things I discussed in my previous video on the MVP. So here we're logging in. Essentially, what this is going to show us is when we go through the patients here, there's a lot of patients that we imported through Cynthia, I think it's called, which is the default way that OpenEMR has imported to fake patients. So here I'm going to go into a patient here, and there's going to be a lot of medical problems here, different things discussed on their charts. A doctor would normally have to go through and look at individual things before they go in, and they might not be able to extract the most pertinent information, the most basic information. So the doctor can come in here and ask, for example, give me the most information. Is it? Okay, so it's going to grab information about this person here. And it's going to kick off a query that lasts about 13 seconds to 20 seconds. It depends. And what that's going to be doing is going and fetching information about this this patient, and then also running the verifier. So making sure that everything that comes back from the query is something that has a source and therefore isn't something that's not based in fact. So making sure that everything's fact-based here. This is taking a little long. In the meantime, okay, there we go. It came back. This is a lot more information than the previous one I ran, so it was a little longer than I wanted. But here you have a very basic rendition of the most important things for this visit, and it's has all the sources, citations here. So it knows which information it's tied to, and all of that is from the actual health database that's tied to this site. The other thing that was implemented is this observability platform. So we're going to see here this chat. It took over a minute. Wow. That's something definitely that we should be optimizing. But here it shows us what inputs and outputs there were. It gives us a latency. It helps us track how much time was spent, how much money cost, and whatnot. So it's a good use case here, especially important given the cost and latency that's important to a system like this. I also want to briefly talk about the architecture. I'm using Railway to deploy, and I have made a sidecar. Essentially, this is a Python app that lives separately that inherits the auth from the user they logged in, and it's going to expire when the person logs out and re-auth when they log in again. So here, this is the OpenEMR fork with the database, and then it's going to hold the credentials there instead of this holding it separately. So that keeps it a little bit more secure, and there's a separation of concerns there, which is good for a healthcare related app like this. Something also I wanted to highlight that is happening here. So if you ask a question like this, right, compare with patient 9999, and this is a particularly rich chart. There's a lot of information. So, but here it's unable to compare with patient 999, is scoped exclusively to patient this. So this person does not have access. That's one of the key things about security here. The information is scoped to this individual here in this view, in this chart here. So in this case, I'm going to be showing how there's a certain limitation with the system that I wanted to discuss as well. So in this particular case, this is a demo patient that I made, but if you ask them about their medications here, so you see that they have allergies that they're allergic to. They have medicines that they're allergic to here. And so here it's going to pull this information about Jane, and it's going to look at these medicines, but it specifically says unknown substance here. And that's because of how we are treating some of the medicine information. We're tracking it by purely in text. We're tracking it with the RX norm and having that conversion layer, it would be able to give us not only the information about this medicine, but also be able to do some cool things like comparison of how those dosages work, how they shouldn't be used together, cool things like that that can be helpful for a doctor as well. All in all, I think this is a good improvement. Obviously, this actually builds out the feature that we originally set out to build, so obviously that's an improvement. But I think the fact that we have distributed those concerns and have it in a separate repo and a separate deployment is good. It doesn't pull on the resources of the existing resources that are allocated to the actual main app as well. That's a good thing overall. I am quite pleased with what's happened so far. Obviously, there are points of improvement like the latency we saw with the more rich and also the RX norm stuff. Definitely things we could improve on. And I also think maybe to save some time, we could introduce primary prompt that goes in first, like a ask, give me a summary, like have that pulled up immediately or run immediately as they open the chart, so it doesn't take as long to account for the latency perhaps. That's something that I would focus on next as well. Thank you.